Unit 1.3. Distance and midpoint formula. To be able to do distance and midpoint, or to understand the purpose of distance and midpoint formula, you need to understand the coordinate plane and coordinates. So if you don't understand the coordinate plane and coordinates, go back and watch the mini video I made reviewing coordinate planes and coordinates. Alright, do that first. Alright, distance formula. Is to find the distance between 2 points. Alright? The distance formula looks like this. Distance, d, equals the square root, parentheses, of the second x minus the first x squared plus the second y minus the first y squared. Why? Because we're looking for the distance between the two x values, and then we're going to square it, and then we're going to add it to the distance between the y values, which is squared, and that's going to give us the distance between the 2 points. I will give you some examples. The midpoint formula is to find the midpoint between 2 points. Alright, we're looking for the middle with the midpoint formula. And the midpoint formula is you add the two x's together, x1 plus x2, and then you divide it by 2. Because if you add two numbers together and then divide by 2, you're cutting it in half. You're finding the middle. Right? That will give you your x value. And then you add your two y values together. y1 plus y2 divided by 2, and that will give you your y value, x comma y. That will give you the point, the coordinate for the point in the middle. Once you have the coordinates, you know where to put the point. Alright, let's practice using these. Alright, so distance, I'm going to rewrite the formula. Square root of the second x minus the first x squared plus the second y minus the first y squared. Keep writing the formula every time before every problem. Why? Because the more you write it, the more you'll remember it. Yesterday I had to look at my notes to write the formula. Today I didn't have to look at my notes. The more you write it, the more you remember it. Alright, and let's see. Sometimes they'll flat out give you the points you're working with. Like it'll say, find the distance. Like it'll say, find the distance between A, and then it'll tell you that A is, let's say, -5, 3, and B, which is -2, -3, right? Sometimes it will literally tell you the points. Sometimes it will be the points on the graph and you have to find the coordinates. This is why I showed you how to find the coordinates. Right? But if it just gives them to you, then all you have to do is use what they already gave you. Right? So, the first thing you should do once you have your coordinates is label them. which is your first x and your first y, your second x and your second y. It doesn't matter which point you choose as your first point. I could have called this my first x and my first y, and my second x and my second y. Because the distance between point A to point B is the same as the distance from point B to point A. So it doesn't matter. Alright, now that I have them labeled, I'm going to substitute the values into the formula. Right? So the formula says D is the square root of x2 minus x1, x2 minus, if there's a negative in the formula, be careful, x1, because now I end up with a double negative. We'll talk about that in just a second. First, copy it down. y2 minus y1. Alright, the first thing you want to do is double check and make sure you substituted your values correctly. Double check. x2 minus x1 should be -3 minus -5. -2 minus a -5. y2 minus y1 should be -3 minus 3. -3 minus 3. Double check and make sure you put your numbers and your values in the correct place. That's one of the reasons we label things, because it's going to stop you from making simple errors and putting them in the wrong place. I have tons of practice with coordinates and formulas. I still label my coordinates. It just keeps everything orderly. Alright, now let's start moving inside our parentheses. D equals the square root. Don't lose your D, your equals, or your square roots. -2 minus a -5. When you're subtracting a negative, you're adding something. So when you see this double negative in the center here, just turn it into a positive. Prevent future mistakes. Alright, so it's -2 plus 5. Remember, a negative is debt. Think about it like cost. If it costs $2 and you paid $5, how much is your change? Your change is $3. Right? Right? Now move on to the next one. If it costs $3 and you bought 2 of them, how much did you spend? You spent $6. Go back and watch it again if I lost you. Alright, again, D equals square root. You're going to keep doing the square root until you find the square root of the answer. 3 squared is the same as 3 times 3. Right? So 3 squared is the same as 3 times 3. 3, 2 times. So that's 9. -6 squared is the same as -6 times -6. Which is a positive 36. Now we're going to add them together. 9 and 36 is 45. 45 is not a perfect square. If it was a perfect square, like the square root of 64, it would have a nice clean answer. 64 is a perfect square. So you can get the square root and it's a nice clean answer, no decimals. Right? But if you know it's not a perfect square, 45 is not a perfect square, right? Then you need to get your calculator, you need to type in your number, 45, and then you need to hit the square root button. And it's going to give you a really long decimal. So instead of having a really clean answer, right, you're going to have to do approximate because you can't write the whole decimal, right? So D, and now that we've done the square root, we don't have to draw the square root anymore, right? It says 6.708. You can round that to 1 or 2 decimals, right? So 6.708 would either be 6.7, and it's not equal to, remember I said you have to do approximately, because it's a decimal. So you're going to do approximately 6.7. 1 decimal is fine. Just make sure you're rounding correctly. Remember the old rule, if it's 4 or below, you round down. If it's 5 or up, you round up. This was 6.70, so 6.7, right? So the distance between these 2 points is approximately 6.7. Pause, think about it, rewind it, watch it again. I'm about to erase it and give you another example. Alright, this time we're going to do the distance between C, which is -4, 1, and D, which is 3, -1. Let's see what we end up with this time. Remember, step 1, label. This is my first X, my first Y. My second X, my second Y. Now we're going to substitute these numbers, these values, these coordinates into the formula. D equals square root x squared minus x1. X squared minus x1. Already ended up with another double negative. Go ahead and change it to a positive. Then we have plus, this prevents future mistakes. We have y squared minus y1. So y squared minus y1, parentheses squared. Double check and make sure it matches your formula. Make sure your numbers are in the right place. Make sure if you have a double negative, it becomes a positive. Then move on. D equals square root. 3 plus 4 is 7. You see how the more practice you have, you can skip this step. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 squared is 49. You could skip this step, but not until you're 100%. Take the time to go through all the steps until you're ready to start doing some of the steps in your head. Right? Plus, spend $1, spend $1. How much did you spend? You spent $2. Right? Follow it through. Square root, 7 squared, 7 times 7, which is 49. It is not 7 times 2. No. 7 squared is 7 times 7. 49 plus -2 squared is -2 times -2, which is positive 4. D equals the square root of 53. Again, it's not a perfect square. Calculator. 53. Just turned off on me. 53. Square root symbol. It looks just like this. 7.28. Alright, so if it's 7.28, this is higher than 5. So we're going to round up, right? That's going to change this to 7.3. We're going to round up. So the distance, not equal to, because it's a decimal, right? It's not a perfect square. approximately 7.3. This is the distance formula. Feel free to watch more videos. I will have some under the folder titled extra videos for help, extra help videos or something like that. I've already got some listed for you, okay? Now, let's do midpoint. You'll find midpoint is a whole lot easier, and you'll wonder why we didn't start there. That's all right. All right? Remember, the midpoint formula is to find the middle between 2 points. x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2, all in parentheses. All right, so copy down the formula again, x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2, parentheses, all in parentheses. Why? Because your answer needs to be parentheses, x value, comma, y value, parentheses. Otherwise, it's not coordinates. All right, and the points we're working with on this one, it might say something like, find the midpoint of, let's call it J, and J is 7, negative 5, and K, and K is 9, negative 1. All right, so you start the same way. You start by labeling your points. First X, first Y, second X, second Y. Then you put them into the formula, slowly and carefully. Right? So, what do we have? Big parentheses. x1 plus x2. 7 plus 9 divided by 2, comma. Again, at some point you'll reach the comfort level to where you can do this in your head. But for now, write down every step. That way, if you make a mistake, I know at what step you're struggling. If you don't show your work, I can't help you because I don't know where you messed up. y1 plus y2, so negative 5 plus negative 1 divided by 2, parentheses. If I continue with the parentheses and the comma, then my answer will be right because it will have a parentheses and the comma. Right? 7 plus 9, 16 divided by 2, negative 5 plus a negative 1. You spent $5 cost, and you spent $1. How much did you spend in total? You spent $6. Follow it through. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. It looks like coordinates because you followed the process. You kept the parentheses and the comma. This is the midpoint between this point and this point. I know. I told you this one was going to seem so much easier. After a little practice, they're both that easy. Alright, go on, watch it again. We'll do one more. Find the midpoint of, let's say, Y and Z. Y is negative 7, 4, and Z, why do I keep using a bunch of different variables? Because I want you to know that any variable can be used to represent any unknown. That's the whole point. We just use X most commonly, but it doesn't have to be X. And Z is 3, negative 4. So, pause it, try to solve it, see what you come up with. and then unpause it and see if you got the right answer. I dare you. First x, first y, second x, second y. Now we're going to substitute it in. x1 plus x2. x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma. y1 plus y2. y1 plus, I almost made a mistake. I hope you noticed. This is my second one. I hope you caught that. It means you're paying attention. y1 plus y2, so 4 plus negative 4 divided by 2, parentheses. If it costs $7 and you pay $3, how much are you short? I'm short $4. If it costs $4 and you pay $4, then you're even. There is no change and you owe no money. 4 plus a negative 4 is inverse. Anything in its inverse cancels. It should end up being 0. You did it right. Right? Negative 4 divided by 2. 0 divided by 2. As long as 0 is in the numerator, it's 0. That's your midpoint. This is what you should have got when you did it yourself. If you didn't, rewind it, figure out where you made your mistake. Alright, like I said, I've already posted extra help videos for coordinate plane, coordinates, for distance formula, and for midpoint formula. So, whatever you need help with, it's there. And then we'll work on the practice sheet in class so that we'll be ready to go.